Good morning, dear students. Welcome you all for the today's online session on the subject Science and Technology Section B. We are starting with our 8th chapter today, that is Useful and Harmful Microbes. Topics to be covered for today are useful microorganisms, rhizobium, symbiotic bacteria, antibiotics, and harmful microorganisms. We will start first with useful microorganisms. Now you know the kingdom around us consists of various microorganisms. They consist of various microbes. Now also recent we have come to know about new virus, that is coronavirus, which falls under harmful microorganism. So some of the microbes are useful to us in our day-to-day life. They are beneficial. They are advantageous. Whereas some are the ones which cause harm to us. So we first start with our first useful microorganism, that is lactobacilli. You can look at the figure over here. Now to see this lactobacilli, you can refer the name. It is a microorganism. So it is visible only and only under a microscope. Now lactobacilli is a useful microorganism. They are minute and somewhat rectangular in shape. You can see not typical rectangular, but they are somewhat rectangular in shape. They fall under the category of anaerobic bacteria. What do you mean by anaerobic? Aerobic means respiration which takes place in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic, N means absence of oxygen. So this bacteria, they can produce the energy without the use of oxygen. So they fall under the category of anaerobic bacteria. Now let us see why they fall under useful microorganisms. You all have heard about the name yogurt. Yogurt which is prepared from milk. You can see this white colored, somewhat it appears like curd, and these are the bacteria which are lactobacilli. They convert milk into yogurt. Lactobacilli, what they do, they convert lactose, the sugar in the milk. All of you know milk contains lactose. This bacteria, they convert this lactose sugar into lactic acid, and this process is called as fermentation. What happens over here? The pH of the milk, it decreases, causing coagulation of milk proteins. What do you mean by the word coagulation? Many of you have seen your mother sets curds to be formed from the milk. Overnight, she takes some milk, and to that milk she adds a tablespoon of curd which is present in the house. And later on you can see actual how that milk turns into a solid. Milk is liquid in nature. It forms a solid like structure which is known as coagulation of milk proteins. Now here what happens? The milk proteins are separated from other constituents of the milk. So this is the process which takes place when milk changes into yogurt. Now milk, you know the taste of milk. It is somewhat sweet in taste. But this bacteria which convert the lactose, the sugar in the milk, into lactic acid. Now due to this acid, this yogurt which is formed, it has a specific sour taste. This taste is due to the acid. You all know acids and bases. Acids are sour in taste, bases are bitter in taste. So due to the formation of this lactic acid, the taste of milk becomes sour. So yogurt has a sour taste. And this low pH, it destroys the harmful microbes which are present in the milk. And hence doctors, they advise you yogurt or buttermilk if you have any type of indigestion or abdominal discomfort, because it is a very good medicine which is used to cure indigestion problems in human beings. Next useful microbe which we are going to see is rhizobium. It is also known as symbiotic bacteria. Rhizobium, you can see the figure of rhizobia. It is taken from Google. In your textbook they have not given a clear photo, so all of you can see they are found in the root nodules of all your leguminous plants like beans, sweet pea. Now let us see how Rhizobia or Rhizobium falls under the category of useful microorganisms. What is their use? Rhizobia, they are found in the root nodules of leguminous plants. They do the main process of supplying nitrates, nitrites and amino acids to that plant. Which plant? The plants in which they reside. And in this exchange, they get the energy in the form of carbohydrates from it. So somewhat they are dependent on the roots of leguminous plants. They are doing a barter system. They are supplying nitrites, nitrates and amino acids to the plants, and in this exchange process they are also getting something. They are getting the energy from the plants in the form of carbohydrates, and such a mutually beneficial relationship is called as symbiosis. Here you can see the exchange taking place between Rhizobia and the leguminous plants, and hence this relationship is called as symbiosis, and they are called as symbiotic bacteria. Now this Rhizobia, they produce nitrogenous compounds from the atmospheric nitrogen. In chapter number 7, under the nitrogen cycle, you have heard how Rhizobia, they produce the nitrogenous compounds from atmospheric nitrogen. But for this process of nitrogen fixation, it cannot be applied. This bacteria do not function in all the types of plants. They require only leguminous plants, such as examples I have taken here: beans, sweet pea, soya bean, etc. as the host. Why host? Because they stay there in the roots of these plants. Beans and pulses are rich in proteins. You have heard protein rich substances due to the nitrogenous compounds which are made available to them. Naturally they do not produce it, which are made available to them by this bacteria which are known as Rhizobia. After harvesting a leguminous crop, you all know when the crop is ripened, the harvesting process takes place. The leftover roots and other plant parts are deliberately dumped in the farm soil to maintain its bacterial population. You all know that Rhizobia, where they are present? In the root nodules of leguminous plants. So after harvesting that crop, the leftover roots of that plants and other plant parts, they are deliberately dumped in the farm soil to maintain its bacterial population. Which population? Rhizobial population. Thus, this use of Rhizobia bacteria, they has helped to reduce the use of chemical fertilizers, and thereby their adverse effects on the soil is automatically reduced. They are supplying the necessary required nitrates, nitrites. They help in the nitrogen fixation. Hence, the use of chemical fertilizers has reduced. Also, the expenses of the farmers on the chemical fertilizers has been reduced, which has proved beneficial for the farmers. So nowadays what is going on? The seeds are coated with rhizobial solution or rhizobial powder before the seeds are sowed. After sowing Rhizobia, they enter the plantlets. This is called as rhizobial inoculation. You have heard about the word inoculation. And this coating with rhizobial solution or powder, this experiment has helped in the supply of nitrogen to cereal and other crops besides leguminous crops. So in such a way, Rhizobia is very, very important to the farmer. It is beneficial for the farmers. It is reducing their expenses on chemical fertilizers. At the same time, it is also proving the crops which are grown from this bacteria, they are very, very rich in nitrogenous compounds. So supplementary, they are having a large number of nitrogen in it. Next we are going to study is yeast. You have heard about the word yeast. You can see the diagram of a yeast. You can see this bud, cell wall covering the yeast, a nucleus. How human beings, animals, we have a heart. Similarly, your nucleus is the main organ, and here you can see inside the cell wall there is cytoplasm. Now, the method of asexual reproduction in yeast is called as budding. Just now you have seen here formation of an outgrowth which is known as bud, and this process of asexual reproduction in yeast is called as budding. Yeast is a heterotrophic fungal microbe that grows on carbon compounds. You can see yeast is present on carbon compounds. It is a unicellular fungus. Why unicellular fungus? Because it has only one cell with 1500 different species which are present today in the nature. Now all of you know how bread is made. Bread is made by main, what you can say, the component in making your bread soft and spongy is the presence of yeast. Yeast is a eukaryotic type of cell, a unicell. It grows and multiplies very quickly due to the carbon compounds in the sugar solution. In the process of obtaining nutrition from the carbon compounds, these yeast cells, they convert the carbohydrates in that solution into alcohol and carbon dioxide gas, and due to the liberation of this carbon dioxide gas, your bread or other components which are prepared by using this yeast, they become very light and spongy, and this process is called as fermentation. This process is called as fermentation. So you can see yeast also falls under the category of a useful microorganism, and the method of asexual reproduction in yeast is called as budding. Why it is called as budding? Just now we have seen in the figure, due to the formation of outgrowth which is known as bud, and hence the process is called as budding in yeast. With this we complete with the topic useful microorganisms. We move on to our next topic, that is antibiotics. All of you have heard the word antibiotics. When you have fever, or when you have cold, or when you have any other type of disease in you, then you go to the doctor. And the doctor, if you go to the allopathic doctor, then the doctor prescribes you with some medicines, some tablets which you have to take orally with water. All these tablets which come under your allopathic medicine, they are called as antibiotics. So today we are going to study what are antibiotics, which are the two types of antibiotics, and names of different antibiotics and how they are used. So what are antibiotics? Carbon compounds obtained from some bacteria and fungi. So antibiotics are nothing but the compounds of carbon which are obtained from some bacteria and fungi for destroying or preventing the growth of harmful microorganisms. We all know harmful microorganisms are the ones which cause diseases. Agreed? So to kill them, these antibiotics are the carbon compounds which are prepared from some other bacteria and fungi. Antibiotics, against the bio means the harmful microorganisms which act against these harmful microorganisms. Now this production of antibiotics, it has proved to be a boon in medical science. They have brought about a revolution, a drastic revolution in the field of medicine. Even a disease like tuberculosis, now you know about coronavirus, still vaccines, they are, what you can say, discovering, fully not successful in the production of any vaccine against coronavirus. But previously also tuberculosis was a disease which was as dangerous as coronavirus. But today, as the antibiotics against tuberculosis has been invented, a disease like TB has been completely eradicated, completely moved out from some of the countries. In India, yes, today also we have some TB patients, but if proper treatment and proper care is taken, proper medicines and diet is followed, the person can fully recover from tuberculosis. So all this is possible only because of the production of antibiotics. because of the knowledge of antibiotics. Antibiotics, they mainly act against harmful bacteria, but some are the antibiotics which can even destroy the protozoa. Some antibiotics are useful against a wide variety of bacteria, and they are called as broad spectrum antibiotics. Antibiotics are of two types. One is broad spectrum antibiotics and the other one is narrow spectrum antibiotics. What do you mean by broad spectrum? They can be used against a wide variety of bacteria. So the examples are ampicillin, amoxicillin, tetracycline, etc. Means the pathogen which has caused the disease is not fully identified, or which disease the person is suffering from. That symptoms are visible, then broad spectrum antibiotics can be used. So when the pathogen cannot be identified, even though the symptoms of the disease are visible, then broad spectrum, see the word itself, broad spectrum, against a wide variety of bacteria. Whenever a pathogenic microorganism is definitely known, means you know that this particular is the microorganism which has caused the disease, then narrow spectrum antibiotics are used. And some of the names of narrow spectrum antibiotics are penicillin, a very common name which you have heard, gentamicin, erythromycin, etc. Now here in the exam you can get the names of different antibiotics and a question can be there. You have to identify them whether they are narrow spectrum or broad spectrum. So you have to know which antibiotics fall under which category. Now the very common name from the antibiotics you all know is penicillin. It is a group of antibiotics obtained from a fungus, Penicillium. You can see the photo here. You can see the diagram of Penicillium, and is used for controlling the infections caused by bacteria like Staphylococcus, Clostridia, Streptococci, etc. These are the names of different bacteria. You have to learn the spellings of this bacteria, and against this bacteria, penicillin is a very good antibiotic which is used to treat these diseases caused by bacteria. So medicines containing penicillin are useful to treat certain bacterial infections of the ear, nose, throat and skin, as well as diseases like pneumonia and scarlet fever. Scarlet fever we do not have this problem more in India, but in foreign countries scarlet fever is one of the major diseases which is faced by the people. In India we have flu, common flu, fever which persists in an individual for 3 or more than 3 days. Or pneumonia, you know, here the patient has a lot of breathing problems due to the cough, accumulation of cough in the body. So against these various diseases, infections of the nose, throat, pneumonia, penicillin is a common antibiotic which is used, and the name is also very known to you. So here we actually complete with useful microorganisms and antibiotics. Now as you know, each coin has two sides. Similarly, there are many microorganisms which are very harmful, which are the ones which cause diseases. And just now we have seen that antibiotics are the ones which act against these harmful microorganisms, and they prevent and help in the cure of the diseases which are caused from harmful microorganisms. So let us see which are the harmful microorganisms. You can see here the photo of fungi. All of you know what is fungi. You have heard about it. You all have also known that microscopic spores of fungi, they are present in the air. So if your bread or chapatis are left unattended for a longer period of time due to the moisture, you keep chapati inside you can say some vessel, or bread if it is left unattended due to the moisture present in the air, or inside the food items, inside the bread also. While preparing bread, you know the bread is moist, or chapati, water is required to prepare the chapati. So fungi, it grows over there. So if there is sufficient moisture, spores germinate on even cotton fabric, gunny bags, leather, wooden items, etc. Especially in the rainy season, you have seen that leather purses or wallets, if they are not attended, if they are not kept in a proper place, and if they get sufficient amount of water, then this fungi, they start growing. And you know how the whitish colored powder type you can see on these items. The fungal hyphae penetrate deep into the material to obtain the nutrition and to reproduce. So what happens as a result of this? The materials, they start to wear up and they become weak. As a result, gunny bags, leather items like shoes, purses, belts, etc. on which fungi have grown do not last for a longer period of time. They get spoiled. Wooden items also. You have heard how the fungi attacks the wooden items. So, a common example which you see is a black powder or white discs floating on the pickle or murabba. This you have seen. Your mother, she prepares pickle which has to be retained for the entire year. She adds a large amount of salt and all in it, but sometimes due to the presence of some moisture or something, there is a black powder, formation of black powder or white colored discs you can see floating on its top when the jar is opened after a very long period of time. So this is nothing but various species of fungi. They grow on food items like pickles, murabba, jam, sauce, chutneys, etc. where moisture is present within it. They use the nutrients in these food items. They are saprophytic in nature. You all know fungi are saprophytic. So they use the nutrients in these food items for growth and their reproduction. During this activity, fungi release mycotoxins. Fungi, they release mycotoxins. They are certain poisonous chemicals into the food. So during the process of growth and reproduction, fungi harms. It is a harmful microorganism. It spoils the quality of your food. How? By releasing these poisonous chemicals which are known as mycotoxins, and thus your food becomes poisonous. So even if you remove this white layer from which is formed on the pickle, or you have seen that bread, on the bread a greenish colored layer is formed after, if the bread is left unattended, so consumption of that bread is very harmful for your health because it has become poisonous due to the release of mycotoxins by the fungi. Hence, the food on which fungi have grown cannot be eaten. So how you can control the growth of this fungi is, one thing is you have to consume fresh fruit. Fresh food has to be consumed. Do not leave it for a long amount of time and then consume. Or secondly, you might have heard your parents putting a large amount of oil or salts in the items like, or in murabba or jams, large amount of sugar. So all this helps in the prevention of your food materials from fungi. The next very harmful microorganism is Clostridium. Look at the name, Clostridium. Sometimes cases of food poisoning occur during community feasts. You have heard there is a marriage or some function in the village side. That side people, they do not take due care of the food items and all. And you have heard many of the people after consuming that food, they face some problems like vomiting, dysentery, which fall under the category of food poisoning. So the bacteria which spoil cooked food are known as Clostridium, a very harmful category of bacteria. Out of about 100 different species of this bacterium, some are free living in the soil, whereas some live in the alimentary canal of humans and other animals. Means alimentary canal means spoiling your digestive system. These bacteria are rod shaped. I will show you the diagram. You can see here different categories of Clostridium. Clostridium tetani, Clostridium perfringens, Clostridium botulinum, Clostridium difficile. These are the different names of Clostridium. So these bacteria are rod shaped. You can see here the shape of this bacteria. They are rod shaped and produce bottle shaped endospores in adverse conditions. One special characteristic of this bacteria is that they cannot withstand the normal oxygen level of the air because they grow in anaerobic conditions. Again here, in the absence of oxygen only, this bacteria can fully grow. Other harmful microorganisms apart from fungi and Clostridia. There are other also kinds of microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, protozoa and fungi, which are also responsible for causing different diseases in human beings. You also have learned that viruses which are smaller than the bacteria can grow and reproduce only in living cells, and today's coronavirus is a very good example of virus which cause diseases. Still today vaccines production discovery is in progress. We wish that very soon we will get some vaccine which will work against this coronavirus and all the people will be fully recovered. Our future generations will be benefited with that vaccines. You all know what is vaccine. So these are the different harmful microorganisms. The main one is fungi and Clostridium, but apart from fungi and Clostridium, there are also various types of bacteria, viruses, protozoa which are responsible for different diseases. Here we end with our chapter number 8, that is useful and harmful microorganisms. If you see in the textbook on page number 94, there was a list. The spread and prevention of disease. The name of the disease was there. The pathogen which was causing the disease, that name was given. Mode of infection and the preventive measures against that disease was given. That entire chart was there, but that chart is fully removed out from our syllabus. You know, government has reduced the syllabus, 25% of the syllabus due to the COVID pandemic, and in that entire table is reduced. So that table I will not explain the table to you, but just for your additional knowledge. No questions will be asked in the exam. I will not give any answers related to that table, but related to the table you can just for your knowledge go through, read, because it is a very good information they have given. The name of the disease, suppose an example they have given AIDS. You should know AIDS is caused by which pathogen? It is caused by virus. What is the mode of infection? So the person gets infected through the blood and semen of the infected person and milk of the mother which is suffering from AIDS. How you can prevent this disease? You can prevent by safe sexual contact and avoiding reuse of needles and injections in the medical science. So if you know the mode of infection and preventive measures, you can keep yourself safe from a particular disease. Also, you can help the society. You can educate the society and make them aware about the causes, how these diseases are caused, so then they can take due care to get themselves prevented from the disease. So in our next session we are going to see the question answers related to this chapter. So our chapter number 8 gets over here today. So all of you read the chapter thoroughly, try to find the question answers and wait till our next session for the discussion of textual exercise. Thank you, dear children.